Welcome to the Law, Your Money, and You. I'm Roberta Sapphire, an attorney in Sharon, and I have to say that because of the coronavirus, we're doing this by way of Zoom and not in the studio.
Yes, that's right. And I'm Camille Barron. I'm a financial coordinator and healthcare advisor, also in Sharon, Massachusetts. And we're going to be talking today with a couple of very, very bright and handsome young men. We're continuing our series about the coronavirus and how it impacts people in all walks of life.
Yes, and this time we have two law school students from different directions. We have Marc-Daniel Paul, who is from Massachusetts and pretty well has studied college just in Massachusetts. And then we have Zev Philip Breyer, who's been in Arizona, and then he went to Miami, and then now he's in Emory Law School in Georgia. So to start off with, too, I want everybody to know, and I'm very proud of both of these young men. One, I'll start with how proud I am of my grandson, because that's Zev Philip Breyer, and he's just the nicest and the smartest and the sweetest, and he's in law school, and his parents are lawyers, and he's got a great background, and he just went. And my other guy here, Marc-Daniel Paul, he's like one of my kids too. I feel we both do, Camilla. I feel a special attachment to him because he started working with the Law, Your Money, and You 5 years ago, 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. And I've watched him. Now he's an old man at 25. He got married, and it just warms my heart to see how he's grown so beautifully. And he's smart too. He started the mock trial in Suffolk. There, I told you everything about them. We don't have to. No, but we're going to start with Marc-Daniel. Marc-Daniel, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to this point. And you're going into your last year of law school.
Of course. Well, first of all, thank you for having me again. It's wonderful to be back with the Law, Your Money, and You. I miss you guys. I've been at Suffolk now. Well, I'm going into my third and final year. It's been an interesting ride. When I used to live in Sharon, which is when I met with Roberta and I got involved with the Law, Your Money, and You, I was also attending Suffolk University at the undergraduate level. So I studied political science, and during that time, I also thought it would be interesting to get involved with different organizations and different local businesses in the community. And I came across, Roberta and the Law, Your Money, and You, and I have to say I'm very, very proud of the work that you guys do in the community, the financial literacy, which is very, very important, especially now in light of COVID-19, where you've got millions and millions of people filing for unemployment every week. I think it's even more crucial now, that students really pay attention, especially students pay attention to the financial literacy aspect of things.
Okay.
So I'm glad to be back.
Okay. No, great. We're going to get back to you. Zev, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I went to University of Miami for undergrad. I was a finance major there. I thought I wanted to do business, and I had a few business internships, and I didn't think I had found my permanent place, so I went to law school hoping to find it. I'm 1 year in, can definitely say I haven't found it, but still searching. And COVID-19 definitely changes the way students have to think about planning their careers. But at the end of the day,
how did it change with you? I know the third year law, you're both lucky because the third year law students, they canceled the bar exam or postponed it.
Yeah. That's state by state. Some states are doing online. Some states have postponed or canceled it. So we'll see. The bar is obvious. That affects 3L students obviously more than it affects me. But I had interviews for internships where those internships were canceled before results were given out. I know friends who have had their internships canceled or pushed to remote, and instead of a 10-week internship, maybe it'll be a 6-week internship. And when you get like less experience from your internships, you have to try to get that experience from somewhere else to compete. And because everyone will have less experience, the competition for like the law firm jobs that are really popular for students, like at my school, are going to be even more competitive.
Boy, that's good. You're both in good law schools. And how about you, Mark?
Yeah, I mean,
Why
I
did
would
you-
I would second that. I was also planning on doing an internship this summer in Texas, San Antonio, Texas,
Oh.
and I had already gone through the application process and had already invested a lot of time, energy, essays into the application process. And when this whole thing started, and it was declared a pandemic, and people were being advised, in some cases ordered, to stay at home, so they decided to cancel the internship. And now I have to find other ways to sort of like gain that experience that other students who preceded me have been able to benefit from. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're a graduate this year, right? Wouldn't all the other students who are graduating have the same experience of not being able to go forward with their plans for internships?
He's graduating next year.
Yeah, I'm going on to my third year starting this fall, yes. But I imagine that because this is so widespread, I imagine that everyone has been impacted in one way or another, whether it is with internship, graduation plans. Like you were saying earlier, Roberta, the SJC has postponed the bar exam until the fall, and we don't know if that's not even going to get postponed again. So, yeah, in every aspect, it's been impacted.
Ziv, how did you take your finals? What did they do for that?
So our classes since spring break have been all online. My school did mandatory pass-fail, so you don't get to take classes for a grade anymore. So for like this is my first year. So all first-year students at my school only have one semester of grades, and normally recruitment starts for second-year students at the fall with 2 semesters of grades. But now a lot of the firms that are recruiting are trying to wait to recruit until January when there's 2 semesters of grades. But in your first year, everyone has to take the same classes. So your grades are relatively fair because everyone has to take the same classes. But next year you don't. You can like pick your schedule, and some classes are easier than others. So the fact that the places are waiting to recruit now for a second semester of grades, which wouldn't be as fair as the second semester was supposed to be, that's going to impact recruitment for some kids who like didn't do as well first semester as they would have liked.
What is it like in Suffolk?
Well, we did something somewhat similar, but it wasn't. The only difference is it wasn't mandatory. So they did 2 things, which turned out to be very, very helpful to students. Typically, the exam is about 2 to 3 hours, depending on the level of difficulty for the class and the length of the exam. But for the spring, because of everything going on, they've allowed each exam to last 24 hours, and which was very, very helpful. And you could start it. You just have 24 hours to submit. You could obviously submit in 2 or 3 hours, but I'm sure everyone took the full 24 hours to go back and review. And as far as the grading system, so we'll move to a pass-fail that is optional. So when we do get the grade, if somehow you are impacted by COVID-19 and you had other things that help, whether it is health-related or job-related, that impacted you, where it had somewhat of an effect on your performance on the exam, you have the option to switch that grade that you did get that's maybe not so satisfactory to a pass-fail. If you do that, it doesn't impact your GPA. But if you do choose to keep the grade that you did get, then you do have to live with that, and it will ultimately impact your GPA.
What have the classes been like? Have they been all online classes now?
They've moved everything to online. Yeah, so like Zev was saying, after we came back from spring, well, we didn't really actually come back from spring break. We were on spring break, and they emailed us saying, hey, because of everything, classes will go, to online. So we basically just had to adjust to the Zoom world of things. But I have to say, it's been aside from, obviously being next to the professor and having that classroom experience, I haven't noticed that big of a difference attending classes on Zoom. I mean, I'm able to see all of my classmates. Some professors do it different, where they have everyone on mute and videos off unless you're on call, then you turn your video on. But as far as access to our professors, to resources, I have to say Suffolk has done a really good job of keeping those channels open to
That's
students.
Jerry's alma mater. Yeah.
What about at Emory, Zev?
Emory's tried, like, they're doing all they can to make this as easy as a transition as they can for their students. Like, I give them all the credit in the world for trying. The truth is, like, there's no substitute for an in-class experience, especially when it's your first year of law school and there's like 100 kids in a class. At least for me, I'm not able to learn the same way over Zoom. And I think partly is that teachers aren't able to teach the same. I don't think that a professor is really prepared to keep people engaged over Zoom. And because all my classes were like 80 plus kids, like we were all on mute with no video. So like you're just watching the professor talk. And it's difficult to pay attention, especially because like I'm the oldest of 8 kids. So when I was home, my house was so loud, like it was like I couldn't even pay attention to the teacher with headphones if I was trying to. It's not Emory's fault, and other people were in worse situations than I was.
Yeah, I imagine it would have been very, very tough for first year students because this is your first encounter to the whole law school experience. It's a very different way of learning. I remember some classmates and I were talking about how we would have reacted to this if it was our first year. I mean, we had gotten, we had taken a few exams before, so we were somewhat used to the process. So it was a little easier on second year students, but first year students, yeah, I can't imagine what you must have to go through being thrown into this.
Yeah. At the end of the day, like we're all most worried about our job prospects. So there's a chance that like your class is.
I think we might have lost them.
We'll get him back. Oh, what about while we're waiting for him to come back? That's strange, huh?
Everybody had gotten disconnected somehow.
Yeah.
Weren't you, Marc-Daniel? Didn't you have an internship? Do they go to Suffolk the way they go to Emory to try to get people to work? What do they call it? To look for interns?
Yeah, he's talking. I think he was referring to the recruitment process, where many law firms and different sectors, they come to the law schools and they try to recruit students from the first year. And he is right, because the first year your classes are chosen for you. Basically, you on equal footing with every other student. Versus if they're doing that, if they're recruiting after second year grades, then students could have chosen to take easier courses, because that's when you have the flexibility, and you could have a student with a GPA of 3.7 because they chose, a really light load versus another student. So that is definitely a challenge that I can understand.
Hey guys, we had a little break, but we're back. So pick up with us.
Sure. So I want to continue talking first with Marc-Daniel. My question is, when you're in your first year of law school, and then Zev, then you can jump in too, I would think that it's really important to have the in-person, face-to-face contact, because it's not just knowledge you're gaining, it's also skills, interacting with people, debating, and that must be very difficult if you don't have access to people in person.
Of course, and I totally agree. And especially a lot of first-year students aren't coming from a legal background. So this is a whole new language. It's a whole new world. Words that you would think would mean one thing in the, in a regular conversation could mean a totally different thing, in law school. A lot of that you pick up on your first year, and they're not things that are necessarily covered, as topics in the classroom. You have to ask about, you have to see it in person. So you miss a whole lot of that when you're not in person. So I totally agree. Again, like I said earlier, I could not imagine if I had to do this remotely my first year, I felt like I would have lost a whole lot.
Yeah. And Zev, would you agree? It's maybe easier to learn the textbook knowledge, so to speak, but you certainly can't get a sense of skills in interacting and arguing cases and those sorts of things.
Well, I'd say both are worse off. Obviously, the skills part of it, you lose that aspect of it almost completely. There's like moot court and mock trial tryouts that are usually done in person, and like they're debates generally done in like a court-like setting. So being in person is like a huge aspect of those. And those tryouts were moved to online, and so I chose not to participate. It's not their fault that it went online, but for me that ruined the tryout experience. So something that I like might have been interested in, like the process was ruined for me, and I think that probably affects other people in different ways. There's like a journal process after finals where you're doing a long write-on, and it's like a essay competition that takes like a week and a half. And for people who are in homes that are louder or they have more responsibility, that write-on, which is normally a really important and competitive process, gets kind of cheapened for the people who have better circumstances.
Hey, let me ask you, Zev. Zev's both parents are attorneys, and so are his grandparents. Does being grown up in the law environment, did that help you at all, or?
So there's no doubt that having parents and grandparents and uncles and etc. who are lawyers makes the law school experience easier. However, unless you've worked in the law, it doesn't matter who your parents are. Like, you're still going to be confused when you try to learn about torts. Like, this stuff is not common sense. And yeah, I'd heard about some of the things from my parents' work, but no lawyer works in like a broad law. Like my parents basically just do like a specific type of tort law, and some people like just do a specific type of contract law. And as a first year, you're trying to learn like these broad areas of law. So like my parents weren't ever teaching me like about like what torts actually was. They just like talked about personal injury.
Yeah. And to switch gears a little bit, you recently flew on an airline from Arizona to Georgia.
So
right?
I've flown like 3 times since COVID began. So I went to spring break to Miami, and that was like the beginning of March, so before people realized how bad it was. But then when I went on a cruise at the very beginning of COVID. Like, boats had already been quarantined, but we chose to go on it anyway, and our boat didn't end up getting quarantined, which was good. But that's like when the concern really began, when we were on the ship. And so when we got off the ship, all my law school books and basically all my clothes and everything was back in Atlanta. So I had to take a flight to Atlanta to get like all my books and stuff. And then because all my classes went online for the rest of the semester, I flew back to Miami. And me and my girlfriend stayed in Miami for a few weeks, and then we went back to Phoenix for a few weeks. So I flew from Miami to Atlanta, then Atlanta to Miami, and then Miami to Phoenix. That was all in March.
Tell us about those flights.
So back then, like, masks weren't really a thing. Like, there weren't that many people with masks on. Like, there was like no one with gloves on. Like, people weren't, like, they were staying away from each other, but there wasn't like precautions. There was like no one in the airport though. Like, there was like 30 people on a plane for all those flights. But then when I just flew a few days ago from Phoenix to Atlanta, like, there's like 2 or 3 times as many people in the airport as there was in March. But there's also a lot more precautions. Like, they board a lot safer, like in smaller groups. Like, everyone's forced to wear masks. They do a lot better job of like cleaning the plane and stuff. So it's gotten better, but it's also gotten more crowded. It's a little scary.
Yeah. And, you know, with some students, I think, Zev, I think you might have mentioned it a few minutes ago. There are some students who have probably gone back home, and it may be that in some cases, parents are both working, and maybe they have a younger sibling, So everybody's in the house. It's kind of a chaos situation, right? They don't have their own space. And I'm wondering if you've heard from or been in contact with any students who may even have additional responsibilities because of being at home. Maybe they have to watch the sibling or something like that, and how difficult that must be for them.
So I don't know, like the person I know with the biggest home difference was probably me. And my home difference wasn't bad. It was just went from I had my own apartment in Atlanta to all of a sudden I was in a house with 10 people. Like it's hard to get work done when there's that much noise. But it wasn't like that much of a burden. I'd say like one of the people I live with, or one of the people I know in law school, um, her boyfriend is an ICU nurse. And so like for her, like she is like quarantining and um her boyfriend is like continuously going into the ER every day and is like exposed to COVID patients. So like for her, like I feel like that's like she, instead of like a normal school experience, all of a sudden she's taking classes online, like worried like about her health and her boyfriend's health.
Yeah.
I'd say like mentally, like I'd say the psychological issues people could face tangentially related to COVID are worse than some of the like
Yeah.
taking care of the
Well,
kids.
this is unusual too. Marc-Daniel is married. He got married, what, 2 years ago, is it? Or is it 3 now?
It's going on 3 years as of September.
Wow.
Boy.
Yeah, but definitely the home responsibilities. Man, it's the more responsibility you have at home, the more this affects you. I could say personally, my mom was diagnosed with COVID not too long
Really?
ago. Yeah, she works in healthcare,
Oh,
so it was almost inevitable being so close to people who are infected with the virus. And
How is she now? What happened?
she's good. That was a few weeks ago. She tested negative. She's through it, and thankfully she's back at work.
What
But
were some
because
of her symptoms? You hear about it, but you don't.
just
Didn't,
the regular symptoms: fever, dry cough, body aches, the chills. Um, and it's if you listen to anyone who's had this virus and describe the symptoms and how you feel, it's almost indescribable. And because she was home with obviously she was home with my dad, whose job had to close down temporarily. My grandma, my little brother. So my grandma had gotten it from her. My little brother had gotten it because he was home from school. So I wasn't obviously exposed to them because we live apart. But the stress of it all, knowing that they're going through that. My wife's mother, my mother-in-law, also had gotten it, and she was
wow.
hospitalized.
Wow.
So I was thinking about all of that while I was also preparing for finals, and the
Oh,
stress
yeah.
of that is almost
Yeah.
indescribable.
Yeah, really. The stress of preparing for finals in itself is stressful. I mean,
Exactly, and
almost
doing that while having to worry about loved ones, close family members who are dealing with this. It's
yeah.
unheard of.
that's incredible. Have you been in touch with any like I know? Tell them about what the job your wife does. She's at Suffolk Law, or is it regular?
Yes, well, she works for the university. She's a career advisor there. So the students who are going on to their final year, they work with her department, and the department basically tries to they work directly with recruiters and employers, and they try to place them into different fields. It's interesting because I think one of her students that she works with was supposed to be placed with my firm, and it was right at the beginning of this whole thing, and we had to cancel that. So that's just one example to tell you so many other students who were on the
Are
process
you
of
still
getting employment.
interning for the firm you were interning for before? Because you've been interning for a few years.
Um, Interning. I work as a full-time paralegal for a law firm in Boston.
Oh, oh, so that's even different.
Yeah. So I've been working for them full-time for almost 4 years now.
Wow.
4 years, boy. And so you working from home for them too?
Yes. So they've had to they've had to basically switch all operations. So everybody's working remotely. Every once in a while we go into the office because there are certain things that you just can't do from home. So I try to go maybe once a week for about 4 or 5 hours, and they've tried to really help us avoid public transportation, avoid crowds. So they're handling the parking payment, so we go directly into the building, straight up to my office, so we don't have to deal with any of the other distractions that might potentially expose me.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You park in the street?
My cousin in Florida just had emergency gallbladder surgery 2 days ago, and she's now staying with her son. Her son is a judge, and his wife is a lawyer, and obviously they're there so she can stay with them. But in a way, that was probably better luck for her that she has somebody to stay with. But you know, it affects people in so many ways. I don't know what they would have done if they weren't home.
Right. And it's not one of those diseases
Boy.
where, if you have a loved one who's sick, where you can just go visit them. You can't. So you
Right.
have to rely on phone conversations. Hopefully, if they have, one of those devices where you can video chat, or a computer,
Yeah.
rely on that. But aside from that, you can't see them, and that only adds to the stress.
Yes.
So were your cousins visiting in Florida? Is that how they happen to be there?
She lives there.
Oh, she lives there. She got a gallbladder.
She had a gallbladder attack and had to go in for surgery, and she was discharged yesterday, staying at her son's house now,
Wow.
Florida.
Boy, she's lucky. And the lawyers. We got the lawyers here. Everybody's a lawyer. So she must see them. They still have to do it by what do they call it? For the medicine, they're calling it telepath and.
Yeah, telehealth. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but you're saying, both of you were saying the bar exams, like I know the bar exam in Massachusetts was, quote, postponed.
To the fall.
Zev, when you go to take the bar exam, which is a ways, what state would you take it in?
Well, that depends because I don't know where I'm going to be working. I've been trying to work in New York. So New York has a bar where you have to take their bar. Like you can't take a different state's bar and have it count. So probably the New York one, but there are other states where if I wanted to practice there, I'd have to take their bar. So I just don't know where I'm going to end up at because location's not like the end all be all for me. I'm going to try to pick a place that like is a company that fits my career interest best, no matter where they're located. So I'll just take the bar wherever.
Boy, things have really changed.
But the other thing is there is the uniform bar exam. So if you take
I was going to ask on that.
the UBE, you can potentially, depending on your score, be able to practice in Massachusetts and New York and many other states. All of those ones that have signed on to it.
Yeah.
So in other words, even in Massachusetts, you can take a 5-state bar, or is it all throughout the country?
Well, the states have to sign on to it. So if you take the UBE and they sign on to it, but they each have their own score, their own
Fascinating.
limit that you need to reach. Yeah, requirements. So if you get above a certain level, and that's above a number of states, then you'll be automatically good to practice in those states.
That's absolutely amazing. Have you done any flying, Marc-Daniel?
Nope, I've been home, trying really hard not to get sick.
Yeah.
Boy. So have you seen through your wife the frustration of students and everything? Like, what are they going to do when they don't know?
Oh yeah. Students call her, reach out to her. I mean, everyone is trying to figure out, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for my internship? What does this mean for, if they were about to graduate, not that we're holding graduations now, but they still get their degree. What's the next step? So it's a process of figuring things out, and there aren't a whole lot of answers right now, especially since we don't know when this will be over.
And you know why our shows are so important? Because we're featuring the graduates, whether they're high school or regular college or law school, and nobody really, the public in the papers and everything, they're not paying attention to the students. I mean, like what you two are bringing out that's horrible what you're both going through. What so many of you, all these law students are going through. I wonder if they'll be able to, what are they going to do? I mean, do you know what anybody's going to do?
I mean, it's rough for the students right now, and So yeah, we should try to give them some credit, but it's rough for everyone. Like the 100, like however many people who have filed for unemployment in the past like few months, I'm sure they're feeling it just as bad
Yeah.
on average, if not worse than the average law student. So like while I wish there was a way so that all the students could feel like secure in their future, like no one really feels secure in the future right now. So the first thing we got to do is come together and fix that.
That's true. Yes, absolutely.
Fascinating.
And of
Fascinating.
course, it's a state-by-state situation because, for instance, Georgia opened up.
Yeah.
Massachusetts is going to release their plan now for opening up. Monday, we'll find out more about it. So, because we're the third, Massachusetts has the third highest number of cases in the country. So you would expect that they'd be a little more conservative here.
But a lot of those cases, they really don't die from that. They might die from something else and they put COVID. I've
Maybe.
gotten that feedback where they really just, somebody, what's happening in Georgia? Are they opening up?
Georgia. So like again, all these places, like when people say opening up, like no one's like opening up a club right now. Like there might be like some open tables at an outside restaurant, or like the barber shop might be open and they have to wear gloves and a mask. But like the term opening up doesn't mean like let's go back to
Right.
pre-COVID and pretend everything's okay. It just means like okay, like we should try to let people go back to work because how long do we wait? Like basically that's the question, like how long do you wait? And every state has a different equation, of course. Like the equation for New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Massachusetts is going to be different from the one in Georgia and Arizona and states like that. But at the end of the day, they still got to be careful. I don't think anyone is really suggesting that people in Georgia like go to the park altogether without masks on, and you know.
You know what they did in Rhode Island? They opened up a few days ago, and the governor has ordered that restaurants can open with just tables of 5. But if you have 4 kids instead of 2 in your family, that's okay. But the tables have to be out in the parking lot. They can't have them inside the building. They have to be out in the parking lot. They can only have so many people, and that's what they're doing. And she said she has reservations. It's a woman governor. She has reservations this Sunday for dinner.
Oh,
God
yeah.
help them if it rains or anything.
Oh, that's right. And the Breyer family would be all set, 5 at a table. Tables.
A few different tables. Yeah.
Well, I don't think they're going to make any real significant progress until they're able to have widespread testing. Because one of the biggest issues right now is asymptomatic people walking around with the virus, not knowing it, but still able to spread it to people who would have really adverse effects from it.
And
Yeah,
then the newer, the most recent thing is with the children now being affected with a related illness.
That's really scary. And
That's very scary.
Being worried about mutations, like there's like, yes, a second wave is something to be very afraid of, but the virus mutating into something potentially more dangerous is much more like potentially catastrophic.
Oh my God, yeah.
Because the current COVID is already a mutation from a virus that only went from animals to humans. And then COVID mutated so that it could go from humans to humans too. So the worry is that this one that's affecting kids, like much more deadlier than the original COVID was, like might also be a mutation.
Well, the good news is that they're onto hopefully a cure or something, that Retta, whatever that name is. We know of somebody from what is it, Gilead, Gilead, and they were in the hospital and they told him he was dying. So they said, "Do you want to be part of this test case? You have nothing to lose because you're dying anyway." And he did. Within 3 days, he was out. Wow. He was out breathing on his own. He couldn't believe it. You saw he was on the news. They walked out of the hospital, everybody applauding and everything, and we happened to know him. And he says, "I don't even need any oxygen anymore." So he was absolutely cured.
Wow.
So, God
That's
willing.
good. It's a good sign. Hopefully,
they're testing different things, so hopefully they can come up with a virus soon. Because I feel like this is really this is going to be the only ultimate solution.
Right.
There's
many trials going on now. Everybody's jumping on the bandwagon to make vaccines.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Which is a
watch
good
out
sign.
the law, all kinds of new law cases, all kinds of new scams coming out. There's class action laws. I mean, imagine all the buildings that are empty, but somehow or other, the mortgages, you can only forgive the mortgages for so many months.
Right.
Is
Right.
it going to go into years? I mean, you can't.
So someone's going out of business, whether it's the landlords or the insurance company or the tenants. Like someone has to lose money from the
Businesses.
property not being used or paid for. That's
Oh,
And
God.
I think another big aspect of this that we might not see coming, um, is lawsuits. Lawsuits for people going back, opening too early, people getting infected. I started hearing about, some class actions like you were just referring to.
Yeah, and the one of the
Infected in
things
workplace.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
One of the things that's up for discussion in Congress is protecting the employers against lawsuits.
Yeah,
That's
like
now.
now you can't sue the town if there's some defect somewhere. I don't know if it used to be, and they're going to say, well, you can't sue the proprietor. It will be illegal to sue them.
That's what they're trying to do, but we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah.
It's a hard balance because you want to be able to punish anyone who knows they're sick and goes around trying to get people sick. Like
Oh,
that should
yeah.
obviously be a punishable offense. But at the same time, you don't really want to punish an asymptomatic person for like not following all the protocols when they didn't even know they were sick.
Exactly.
So there's going to be a balance, but I don't even know where to draw the line because I don't think you really want to punish people for a virus. Like it's difficult to be like, it's this human's fault that a virus killed someone.
Mm.
Hey,
Yeah.
Camille, I think we're about run out of time, or have we?
Oh, I'm not ready. These two young men are so interesting. I want to stay on longer.
No, I
No,
think
seriously, you guys are just brilliant. The way that you think really is.
yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it really
But
is.
the two of you got the same thoughts, even though you're from different backgrounds, different schools,
Yeah.
states.
Mm-hmm.
One's married, one's single. It's a different thing.
This has been very enlightening. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for being
Thank you
on.
for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having
Yes,
us.
You're
we've
welcome.
been telling our people we'll probably have you back because things are evolving so quickly that we may find things totally different in a month or two from now, and we definitely like to hear more from you
Of course.
as things evolve. That
Yeah,
would
this
be
is
Yeah.
definitely a constantly evolving situation.
yes.
I know Marc-Daniel will probably be around in Boston in a few months, but who knows where Zev will be.
Yeah, thank you again. And to our viewers, thank you for watching. This again is part of our continuing series on the coronavirus and how it affects people. Please let us know if you have any ideas or would like to maybe consider a different topic related to coronavirus. And we'd love to hear from you. Because remember, this is your show, The Law.
Your money and
You.
you. People play.
There you go.
Yeah.